Attorney, Chancellor, Minister of the Interior of Ecuador, Minister of the Government of Bolivia, distinguished representative of the European Union in Ecuador. Our son Uachtarántach na Heorpa cuireann 100 míle fáilte ród go léirgeadí or grinneadh an seo in Quito. I'm delighted, ladies and gentlemen, to have the honour to address you today as co-chairperson of this 15th high-level meeting of the European Union CELAC Coordination and Cooperation Mechanism on Drugs. It's a particular pleasure to be here in this beautiful city of Quito, one of the first UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I look forward very much to our interactions over the next few days and to learning more about Latin America, the Caribbean, and of course about Ecuador. And if I may be indulged, just briefly to thank Senor Valazero and his colleagues in CONCEP for a most interesting, engaging and informative set of briefings which I had the honour to have yesterday afternoon and to find out about much of the very impressive work that's going on here in Ecuador, as touched on by the Minister of the Interior in his speech. The drugs problem is a truly global phenomenon. Recognising the principle of common and shared responsibility, international cooperation is essential. In this context, bi-regional cooperation between the EU and Latin America and the Caribbean is extremely important as part of our overall combined efforts to reduce drug supply and drug demand. Addressing the global drug issue involves multiple challenges. These include how to prevent drug use and thus reduce demand, how to effectively reduce the supply of drugs, those produced as crops and those developed in laboratories, and how best to develop and expand access to effective treatment, rehabilitation, and social integration services for those directly affected by problem drug use. At EU level, the European Drug Report published in May, and about which we will hear more during this meeting, indicates that there are some positive developments in relation to more so-called established drugs. These include fewer new users of heroin, less injecting, and declining use of cannabis and cocaine in some countries. However, as you know, there are also emerging challenges, including a relentless supply of new drugs to which our policies must adapt. Our efforts to address these challenges, ladies and gentlemen, are helped by engaging in open dialogue, sharing our experiences, successes and failures, and endeavouring to work in a coordinated way on a global basis. From a European perspective, we aim to strengthen dialogue and cooperation between the EU and third countries and international organisations on drug issues in a comprehensive and balanced manner. I see this high-level meeting as one of the main opportunities in that context, and I very much look forward to mutually beneficial interactions over these coming 2 days. While the drug phenomenon is truly global in nature, it is at the same time a local issue for individuals, families, and communities. I strongly feel that in order to tackle the drugs issue in a comprehensive way, we need to have coherence across our approaches at local, national, regional, and global levels. As a health minister with lead responsibility for the Irish National Drug Strategy, I oversee a range of structures that support its implementation. This involves, for example, drugs task forces at local level throughout the country, feeding into national structures, culminating in our Oversight Forum on Drugs, which I chair and which meets on a quarterly basis. The local and regional drugs task forces facilitate partnership approach between the statutory sector and civil society organisations. They generate and sustain effective, targeted local responses to the drugs phenomenon and improved coordination of service provision. I believe it is vital that drugs policy is informed by the experiences of people and communities affected by drugs, and that this local experience and insight must contribute to national, regional, and international policy developments. At the same time, it's important that national and international experiences are brought to bear on initiatives being implemented or planned at local level. We don't need to continually reinvent the wheel. The outcomes of initiatives in various localities and settings can inform future courses of action. Overall, this combination of a bottom-up and top-down approach is a major factor in the level of success achieved under the Irish strategy, and that has been our experience. This is combined with ongoing monitoring and evaluation to identify outcomes in the effort to ensure that scarce resources are used to best effect. In December 2012, the Council of the European Union, under the Cypriot presidency, adopted the EU Drug Strategy 2013-2020. The strategy aims to contribute to a reduction in drug demand and drug supply within the EU, following an integrated, balanced and evidence-based approach and full respect of human rights. It also aims to reduce the health and social risks and harms caused by drugs through a strategic approach that supports and complements national policies, that provides a framework for coordinated and joint actions, and that forms the basis for EU external cooperation in relation to drugs. In line with the strategy's stipulation that its implementation should be set out in 2 consecutive 4-year action plans, the Irish presidency has led the negotiation of the first of these action plans to cover the period 2013 to 2016. EU Council agreement was reached on the action plan on the 6th of June. You'll hear further details on the strategy and the action plan in tomorrow's session of this high-level meeting. On the international stage, and underlining the importance of our common and shared responsibility in the face of the world drug problem, dialogues, declarations, and action plans with strategic partners play a vital role in increasing our mutual understanding and cooperation in tackling the drugs issue. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to participate in the final stage of the COPOLAD conference, and I was impressed by the exchange of information and experiences there. As a key instrument of the EU CELAC mechanism on drugs, COPOLAD is an important research, learning, capacity building and coordination resource that can lead to real benefits for communities affected by drugs. I'm very much encouraged that the EU CELAC Santiago Declaration of January 2013 and the EU CELAC Action Plan on Drugs strongly reiterate our mutual commitment to dialogue and action to tackle in an effective way the drug problem that affects our regions. I'm also confident that the political declaration to issue from this Quito high-level meeting will represent a further strengthening of the resolve of both parties. Other notable initiatives include the ongoing specialised dialogue between the EU and the Andean community, the involvement of the EU in the Central America Security Strategy, which also deals with the drugs issue, the EU-Caribbean Joint Strategy, which includes a focus on drugs, the launching of a new dialogue on drugs between the EU and Brazil during the Irish presidency of the EU, and the ongoing EU financial and technical support to address drugs issues in the region. The full implementation of such initiatives will complement and reinforce the efforts we're all making to ensure that we can have healthier and safer communities in our regions. All of these initiatives will inform our approaches to the special session of the General Assembly of the United Nations on the World Drug Problem in 2016. This will provide the opportunity to identify the most effective strategies to combat the drug phenomenon in all its dimensions, and I'm certain that CELAC and the EU will make valuable contributions to the process. Turning to the programme for the high-level meeting, I sincerely wish to thank the Ecuadorian co-presidency of the Coordination and Cooperation Mechanism on Drugs for ensuring a comprehensive agenda. I'm particularly looking forward to the thematic debates, and I'm sure that we'll have a useful exchange of views and experiences. I feel sure that I'll come away from this meeting with a more informed view on the CELAC perspective, and this will be of real value to me in my work. Ladies and gentlemen, dialogue and an open mind are essential in all areas of public policy. Perhaps nowhere is this more true than in this area of drugs policy and its implementation. In conclusion, I would like to thank our Ecuadorian co-presidency once again for all their constructive cooperation during the technical meetings leading up to today's events. In particular, I wish to acknowledge the contribution of Ambassador Deborah Salgado Campaña and her colleague Ramiro Hidalgo in this regard. I wish you all well in our deliberations today and tomorrow, and I encourage full participation in the opportunities for debate and dialogue afforded by this important event. Go raibh míle maith agaibh go léir.